Hashtag 4 air conditioner outdoor units blasting my exterior wall. I bought Soundproof cotton and their entire family broke down. Author, Xiao Xiao loves writing. My neighbor installed 4 AC outdoor units, all facing the outer wall of my bedroom. The noise was so loud, I had to wear earplugs every night to fall asleep. I knocked on his door to reason things out, but he waved his hand dismissively. This wall isn't yours, so what right do you have to stop me? The property management came to mediate, yet he remained unyielding, claiming the exterior wall was public property and he could mount equipment anywhere he pleased. Fine then. That very night, I nailed 10 thick layers of industrial soundproof cotton to the interior side of the shared wall. 20 days later, he banged frantically on my door, begging through tears. Please tear that stuff down for me. Hashtag chapter 1. The vibration started early in the morning, like a relentless giant woodpecker hammering away at the load-bearing wall shared by our 2 apartments. My name is Zhou Yu, a freelance writer who makes a living writing articles. Peace and quiet are my most essential work tools, and this constant racket was their mortal enemy. I endured it through the whole morning. The drilling finally stopped in the afternoon, and I exhaled in relief, thinking the nightmare was over. But when I pulled back the curtains, the real horror unfolded before my eyes. 4 brand new air conditioner outdoor units were bolted firmly onto the outer wall of my bedroom, lined up neatly in a row. Tangled metal pipes snaked across the wall like twisted vines. This was Wang Zhen, the neighbor across the hall. He'd only moved in 3 months prior, and I'd only run into him twice in the elevator. I'd never even imagined his apartment would need 4 air conditioners. It didn't take long for me to find out why. The 4 units kicked on at the same time, releasing a low, endless droning hum. Buzz. 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 The sound wasn't deafening, but it pierced straight through the walls and burrowed into my skull. My temples throbbed nonstop. I put on noise-canceling headphones, yet the low-frequency resonance still traveled through the floors and walls, reverberating in my bones. This was far more than noise, it was sensory pollution. I took a deep breath and headed over to his door. Knock, knock, knock. The door swung open, and a strong stench of alcohol mixed with takeout food washed over me. Wang Zhen stood shirtless, with a bulging beer belly, eyes heavy with sleep, his tone irritable before I even spoke. What do you want? Mr. Wang, I tried to stay polite. Did you install your AC units on the wrong wall? He blinked, then let out a scoffing laugh. They're mounted exactly where they should be. But that's the outer wall of my bedroom. I pointed toward the wall between our homes. I know that. He acted as if this was completely reasonable. When all 4 run at once, the noise and vibrations disturb me terribly. I struggle to hold back my anger. Wang Zhen waved his hand carelessly. This wall doesn't belong only to you. The developer built it. What gives you the authority to ban my equipment here? His logic left me speechless for a moment. The exterior wall counts as a communal area, but you can't attach your appliances to the side that borders my home and cause constant disturbance to me. Public space means I can mount stuff wherever I want. He picked at his ear. Besides, it's not even that loud. You're just oversensitive. With that, he slammed the door shut in my face. I stood frozen, trembling with rage. Oversensitive? Quiet is how I earn my bread, and this buzzing hum was single-handedly ruining my livelihood. I immediately called property management. 15 minutes later, property manager Zhang arrived, wearing glasses. He first tried to soothe my emotions, then knocked on Wang Zhen's door. The door opened again, and Wang Zhen's attitude stayed just as arrogant when he saw the property staff. Manager Zhang smiled awkwardly and relayed my complaints alongside the community's housing rules. Wang Zhen crossed his arms and leaned against the doorframe, sneering once the manager finished speaking. The exterior wall is public property. You property folks know that better than anyone. Per the property law, property owners are prohibited from dumping garbage, emitting noise pollution, or infringing on other residents' legitimate rights and interests. Is an air conditioner classified as trash or pollutants? The state allows them to be sold, so I have every right to install mine. He argued relentlessly. I'm telling you, there's no room for compromise here. If it bothers her that much, she can buy earplugs herself. Manager Zhang tried to interject, but Wang Zhen cut him off. Enough pestering me. The door slammed shut a second time. Manager Zhang stared at me with a helpless look. Miss Zhou, as much as we'd like to help, the Property Management Office has no law enforcement authority. We can only mediate repeatedly. So mediation amounts to telling me to buy earplugs myself? I retorted. Manager Zhang pushed his glasses awkwardly and rambled on empty reassurances about further communication and asking for my understanding. I stopped listening. I knew the property route would lead nowhere. Back home, the 4 outdoor units kept droning away without pause. Buzz. Buzz. My entire world shrank down to that single endless hum. I opened my laptop and couldn't type a single word. That night, I wore my most expensive sleep earplugs to bed, yet I could still feel the bed frame trembling along with the wall. I didn't sleep a wink all night. The next day, I went back to the property office and received the same useless script. On the 3rd day, I dialed the municipal citizen hotline. The operator said they'd send officials to inspect and asked me to wait for notice. A full week passed and nothing changed. The noise persisted. Wang Jin showed no remorse, and my insomnia worsened by the day. I felt like an insect trapped inside a giant drum, pounded on from every direction with nowhere to escape. Staring at the cold shared wall, despair crashed over me like a tidal wave. Hashtag chapter 2. The turning point came during a critical video conference I'd pulled 3 all-nighters preparing for this project pitch with a well-known industry firm. I prepped every document 3 days in advance, tested all my equipment, and even put on a careful layer of makeup for the call. The meeting started smoothly. I smiled at the camera and laid out my proposal clearly, and the client lead nodded approvingly for the first 10 minutes. Right as I got to my core creative concept, the familiar buzzing suddenly spiked in volume, as if all 4 AC units had simultaneously cranked up to maximum power. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The noise was so loud static crackled through my headset. I watched the client leader frown and adjust his headphones. Miss Show, what's that noise on your end? My heart sank instantly. Sorry, minor equipment interference. I tried to gloss over it and cranked my mixed noise reduction setting to maximum, yet the low-frequency vibrations seeped through every barrier like a ghost. Sounds like renovation work, another member of their team commented. My face burned with embarrassment. My neighbor's air conditioner seems to be malfunctioning, I explained lamely. The second half of the meeting fell apart completely. The client team's attention drifted away from my proposal, their expressions shifting from approval to confusion, then outright disappointment. When the meeting wrapped, the lead spoke in a formal, distant tone. We've received your proposal and will hold internal discussions. Thank you for your time. I knew the deal was dead. I closed the video call and collapsed back into my chair. The AC's drone mocking me relentlessly. IT had stolen my sleep, and now my career too. That was the final straw that broke the camel's back. All my grievances and helplessness vanished. Replaced by icy calm, I suddenly realized how ridiculous my earlier attempts at reasoning and filing complaints had been. You reason with a hooligan, and he responds with petty loopholes. You talk morals to a shameless man, and he outdoes you in shamelessness. I'd made a mistake from the very start. If civilized approaches wouldn't work, I needed a language he could understand, a pain he could feel firsthand. I stood expressionless and walked over to the vibrating wall, pressing my palm flat against its surface. I could feel the fine, constant tremors radiating through it. This wall was the root of all my troubles, and also the solution. Wang Zhen was right that the exterior wall was public space he could use, but the interior wall belonged solely to me, and I held full authority over what I did with it. A wild plan took shape in my mind. I closed the complaint websites and legal articles I'd been reading and opened a shopping app, typing word by word into the search bar. Industrial high-density soundproof cotton. Multiple products popped up on screen, and I skipped the priciest option and picked a store whose reviews claimed its material blocked noise from adjacent KTVs entirely. The customer service asked what thickness I needed. What's your thickest option? 5 centimeter rock wool panels with top-tier sound insulation performance. I'll cover the entire wall with them. How many square meters do you require? I grabbed a tape measure and calculated. 5 meters long, 2.8 meters high, 14 square meters total. 14 square meters, 10 full layers stacked. The customer service stayed silent for a full minute before sending a shocked emoji. Ma'am, 10 layers would make a full 50 centimeter thick wall and take up a lot of indoor floor space. I'm certain. That'll cost a substantial amount. Money isn't an issue. I could already picture the wall covered in half a meter of soundproof cotton, a fortress of absolute silence. The staff quickly calculated the total price and shipping fees, a hefty sum I paid without hesitation. As I watched the order confirmation pop up, I smiled for the first time in a week, cold and anticipatory. Hashtag chapter 3. 3 days later, a large delivery truck pulled up outside the apartment building. For construction workers rolled massive wrap rolls of cotton up the elevator, stacking huge cylinders right outside my front door. Wang Zhen opened his door to take out trash just then and stared, a mocking grin spreading across his face. Whoa, Miss Zhou, hit the jackpot and renovating the place? I ignored him, focused on directing the workers to carry the materials inside. He kept talking unprompted. Bought so many thick blankets, gonna sleep on the living room floor? Makes sense with all that noise in your bedroom. His tone dripped with triumphant condescension. I paused what I was doing and turned to stare at him. No anger or argument in my eyes, just indifference, as if looking at a random stranger. Wang Zhen grew uneasy under my gaze, his smile faltering. What are you staring at? Am I wrong? He snapped, trying to regain bravado. I spoke softly and clearly. This has nothing to do with you. I turned back to the workers. Thanks for your hard work. Just stack them here. Wang Zhen had never been brushed off so coldly. He scoffed crazy woman and trudged away with his trash bag. I closed the door, facing mountains of gray cotton rolls piled in my living room. I unrolled one sheet. Dense, heavy rock wool, nothing like soft, regular cotton, taller than my frame. This would be my battlefield for the next 20 days. I wouldn't hire help. This wall needed to be built by my own hands, a silent declaration of my boundaries and self-respect. I changed into old clothes, gloves, and a mask, grabbed my nail gun and boxes of steel fasteners. Step 1. Clear the room. I moved the bed, wardrobe, and desk all out to the living room, leaving only the bare vibrating wall in the bedroom. Standing before it, I could almost visualize the 4 noisy outdoor units on the other side. Perfect. I raised the nail gun, pressed the first cotton sheet tight against the plaster, and pulled the trigger. Bang! A dull thud as the steel nail sunk deep into the wall. I repositioned the panels, firing shot after shot. Bang, bang, bang. The dense gunfire echoed through the empty bedroom, far more pleasant than the AC drone. Each shot a counterattack. The first layer took the whole night to install. Every panel fitted seamlessly with zero gaps. Sweat soaked my clothes and my arms ached, yet my mind buzzed with excitement. When the first full gray armor covered the wall, a miraculous shift happened. The deep thrumming hum vanished entirely. I took off my earplugs and listened. Dead silence, a luxury that brought tears to my eyes. But this was only the beginning. I aimed for 10 layers total. Over the following days, I drew the curtains and layered cotton sheet after sheet in dim lamplight, the wall bulging inward visibly, growing thicker and more impenetrable, like a silent giant taking shape. Wang Zhan occasionally tapped the shared wall from aside, testing the barrier with dull thuds, yet the vibrations barely traveled through the insulation. I listened with a cold smirk and kept working. By day 5, I finished the 5th layer, the wall now 25 centimeters thick and my sleep quality vastly improved. On day 7, 7 layers went up, and his midnight wall taps sounded no louder than mosquito buzzes to me. He must have been confused why his noise weapon suddenly failed, unaware I'd laid a trap that would boomerang back at him over time. On day 15, the 9th layer went on, the wall protruding 45 centimeters into my room, an odd gray bulk that gave me unparalleled security as I ran my palm over its solid surface. On the 20th day, I lifted the final cotton roll, driving the last steel nail home. I stepped back to admire my creation, a 50-centimeter thick industrial soundproof barrier, quiet and unyielding as fortress masonry. I discarded my tools, showered, then returned to the empty bedroom to drag my bed back inside. Lying down, I closed my eyes and fell instantly into deep sleep. Starting that night, the insomniac would be him, not me. Hashtag chapter 4. My sleep became wonderfully peaceful. In absolute silence, I could even hear my own blood circulating, no tinnitus or morning headaches to greet me when I woke. I brewed pour-over coffee at ease, my mind sharp enough to crank out 3 days worth of stalled writing in a single morning. I'd reclaimed my most vital resource, quiet. The 50-centimeter wall stood silent guard over my space. One afternoon, I headed out for groceries and ran into property manager Zhang by the elevator. He looked conflicted when he saw me. Miss Zhou, has Mr. Wang bothered you lately? I shook my head. It's been quiet recently. That's a relief, he sighed, yet worry lingered in his expression. We've gotten multiple complaints from him about you, though. Complaining about me? I blinked in surprise. He says his apartment's unbearably hot all the time. Heat? I suppressed a subtle, knowing smile. He installed 4 air conditioners after all, didn't he? Exactly what we wondered. Zhang looked perplexed. He says the walls burn hot, and his electricity bills have skyrocketed. He suspects you did something to his place. I smiled calmly. I'm a law-abiding resident. What could I possibly do to his unit? We checked all communal wiring and found no faults, so we came to ask if you noticed anything strange on your end. Everything's normal here, I replied blandly, and stepped off the elevator once the doors opened. I could feel his curious gaze trailing after me, but I paid it no mind. Back home, I shut the door and replayed our conversation, searching online for the thermal conductivity of rock wool and heat reflection from AC outdoor units. My hunch was fully confirmed. The high-density soundproof cotton I'd used also functioned as top-tier thermal insulation, acting like a mirror that bounced sound and heat straight back to the source. Wang Zhen's 4 outdoor units pumped massive amounts of waste heat toward the shared wall 24 hours a day. Previously, that heat seeped partially into my apartment and dispersed into open air, but my half-meter insulation blocked all escape routes. The trapped heat reflected back into his unit, turning his flat into a continuously heated oven. The harder he cranked his AC, the more waste heat the units produced, amplifying the indoor temperatures on his side. He was fueling his own suffering. I couldn't help laughing at the perfect, legal retribution. I'd only protected my private space, and his discomfort was merely the natural consequence of his own reckless choices. That midnight, I woke to muffled cries and sobs drifting through the hallway. I peered through the peephole to see Wang Zhen's wife sitting on the floor outside their door, holding their overheated, sweating child, while Wang Zhen waved a cardboard fan frantically, only blasting more hot air around. We can't live like this, his wife wailed. Look how overheated the kid is, he'll get heat stroke. Shut up. Wang snapped irritably. I called a repairman for tomorrow. We just had one yesterday. They said the AC units are fully functional. Wang kicked the wall in frustration, staring blankly around the sweltering corridor, sweat pouring down his forehead, confusion and despair etched into his face. Then his gaze locked onto my front door, filled with a tangled mix of fear, suspicion, and desperate pleading. He'd finally started to piece together what had happened. Hashtag chapter 5. The repairman never showed up the next morning. Wang Zhen himself hammered frantically on my door at dawn, urgent and restless knocks echoing down the hall. I finished breakfast and sipped my coffee slowly before answering the intercom. Who's there? It's Wang Zhen, his voice hoarse, stripped of its usual arrogance. What do you want? Open the door, we need to talk. I have nothing to discuss with you. There is something important, please, begging you to open up. The word beg sounded alien coming from him. I kept the door latched. If you're here to complain about noise, contact property management instead. It's not the noise. My apartment's turned into a furnace, he nearly shouted through the speaker. Please open and let me explain. I stayed silent, leaving him pounding the door and yelling threats for 10 minutes until manager Zhang arrived to calm him down. Through the peephole, I watched Wang grab the manager's collar, red-faced and frantic, as other neighbors peeked out to watch the commotion. "It's her fault! She tampered with the wall." He screamed, pointing at my door. Threatening to kick it down, I dialed 110 immediately, reporting a trespasser threatening to force entry and assault me. Police arrived minutes later. I opened the door, wearing a believable look of fear and grievance, pointing to the dented door panel and explaining Wang's outburst, pulling up screenshots of my earlier noise complaints as evidence. Wang stammered incoherent accusations about me altering the shared wall, while officers and onlookers gaped at the massive 50-centimeter cotton barrier visible through my doorway. The police reprimanded him harshly. The resident installed sound insulation inside her own legal living space. Your overheated apartment is a separate issue requiring professional HVAC or construction inspections. Vandalizing her doorway counts as public disturbance. They escorted Wang down to the station to file a formal statement. Hashtag Chapter 6. Wang Zhen was released the same day after receiving verbal reprimands and signing a written guarantee of good conduct, with no detention since no physical property damage had occurred. That evening, he and his wife showed up at my door carrying a fruit basket, their postures utterly dejected. I made them wait 5 minutes before cracking the door open a sliver. "What do you want?" My voice held no warmth. Wang bowed deeply, his wife following suit. "We're truly sorry for this morning's outburst." I crossed my arms and watched their performative remorse. "Please remove that wall insulation for us." His wife tearfully held out the fruit basket. The walls hit 50 degrees inside our place. 2 home appliances burned out already, and our child's covered in heat rash. Name any compensation amount you want. I let out a cold laugh. Earlier you claimed the exterior wall was public property you could mount equipment anywhere, and told me to buy earplugs if I found it noisy. His face flushed crimson. I was completely wrong. I'm an inconsiderate fool. Please grant us mercy. "I'll remove the cotton only on 3 conditions," I stated flatly. First, remove all 4 AC outdoor units from my exterior wall today, hire professionals to fill all drill holes, and restore the wall to its original condition at your own cost. Second, fully compensate me for the soundproof cotton materials, lost work time, and mental distress. 6 figures total, displayed clearly on my phone calculator. Third, write a handwritten apology detailing the full incident, acknowledging your misconduct. Post 1 copy on the community notice board for a full week and leave another with me. Wang hesitated visibly at the large compensation sum and the public apology demand. You had no room to bargain, trapped between unbearable heat and financial ruin at home. After half an hour of miserable deliberation over the intercom, he texted confirmation that he accepted all 3 terms, transferring the full compensation amount to my bank within 10 minutes and delivering the handwritten apology letter to my door. The note was messy with crossed out words, overflowing with self-deprecation as he labeled himself a selfish, ignorant bad neighbor. He carried the duplicate over to the elevator notice board to post it without a word of protest. Hashtag Chapter 7. Early the next morning, construction crews hung outside my building, removing the 4 ugly outdoor units one by one and patching all drill holes to match the wall's original paint tone. By noon, the exterior was restored to its clean, unmarked state, as if the whole ordeal had never happened. I thought the matter was fully resolved until a well-dressed man with gold-rimmed glasses arrived at my door flanked by 2 suited bodyguards. This was Wang Zhen's elder brother Wang Lei, evidently a man of wealth and influence. He claimed he'd come to apologize on his brother's behalf, slipping a 7-figure check toward me to persuade me to tear down the soundproof cotton wall. I declined the bribe outright, refusing to remove my legal insulation built within my private residence. His gentle facade faded into icy hostility after my refusal, warning me to leave room for compromise between neighbors before departing with a cold parting remark. I recognized this was only a temporary retreat, and worse retaliation was brewing. Hashtag Chapter 8. A week later, the downstairs resident Antley contacted property management claiming her ceiling leaked water originating from my bedroom. I suspected Wang Lei's scheming instantly, gathering photographic evidence of suspicious water stains sprayed onto her exterior wall from outside before allowing maintenance and police to enter my unit for inspection. When Antley launched a hysterical tirade accusing me of water damage, I threatened to call law enforcement to investigate her collusive false accusation. Faced with potential legal penalties for filing a false report, Antley broke down and admitted Wang Lei had bribed her 20,000 yuan to stage the leak as blackmail against me. Police summoned Wang Lei to the station, issuing a 7-day administrative detention sentence for fraud and orchestrating false accusations. Hashtag Chapter 9. After Wang Lei's release from detention, he refrained from direct confrontations, instead leveraging his industry connections to spread fabricated slander about me to every publishing house and creative client I collaborated with. One major long-term partner formally notified me they would permanently terminate all future cooperation, citing unsubstantiated records of neighborhood disputes and alleged criminal conduct they'd been fed by Wang Lei. This blow targeted my livelihood, a far more vicious attack than noise or staged leaks. I resolved not to back down, compiling every piece of evidence from the AC dispute, Wang Zhen's apology, Wang Lei's bribery scheme, and police records to prepare formal civil litigation against the brothers for harassment, defamation, and property infringement. I would defend my life, career, and right to peace at all co.